knows too much.
A catastrophic terror event took thousands of innocent lives in Manhattan. Almost immediately, Osama bin Laden was identified as the most likely culprit by the national media. Bin Laden was a rich Saudi who had moved to Afghanistan to assist the CIA's war against the Soviet invaders. After the Soviets withdrew, much of his mercenary army was moved to resist the Serbian genocide of Bosnian Muslims. Almost immediately, the Patriot Act was railroaded through Congress. It had been prepared in advance. Almost immediately, a war was launched to grab the biggest opium fields in the world in Afghanistan, followed by a war to grab the biggest oil field in the Middle East in Iraq, a country with zero connections to the events of 9/11. The ensuing wars won bonzo profits for the military-industrial complex, and especially so for Dick Cheney's old company, Halliburton, but destabilized the region and resulted in hundreds of thousands of civilian casualties and millions of people displaced from their homes. Almost immediately, the crime scene in New York was demolished and destroyed while the residents of the city were told the air was safe to breathe. Soon that would be established as perhaps the greatest lie of all, but the list is long and grows longer through the years. The day of the event, the internet exploded with crackpot conspiracy theories, some of which contained elements of truth mixed up with lots of easily disproved misinformation. This eventually morphed into a truth movement infested by intel influencers who salted false trails in all directions. A year and a half after 9/11, Pakistan ISI picked up Sheikh Mohammed and turned him over to the CIA, who renditioned him to Gitmo and proceeded to torture him for years, while also waterboarding him 183 times. Enhanced interrogation techniques designed to break his personality. 2 weeks after he was picked up, we invaded Iraq and destroyed the social fabric of that country, a campaign that resulted in nearly 500,000 casualties. Gitmo torture would have been illegal on U.S. soil, and confessions extracted under such duress have no more credibility than those extracted by Jesuit inquisitors during their crackdown on the Renaissance. So what is it about 9/11 that resulted in this 2-decade delay in prosecuting the case, which is now scheduled to go before a military tribunal in 2021? It's amazing 2 psychologists with zero experience in interrogations or terrorism were paid $81 million to administer torture to the Gitmo detainees, at least a quarter of whom were completely innocent and never should have been abducted in the first place. After the reality of what was going on leaked out to Congress, audio and videotapes of all torture sessions were swiftly destroyed by the CIA. The report is a film about the decade-long investigation conducted by Daniel Jones, a Senate staffer for Dianne Feinstein, vice chair of the Intelligence Committee. Jones was given access to millions of CIA documents and emails and spent 7 years tracking every detainee through the system, discovering some painful truths along the way. Unfortunately, his report was suppressed and never made public. But its conclusions are presented in the film, and they include that the CIA knew the torture sessions would not produce credible evidence, only fake confessions. Why would the CIA pay $81 million to conduct worthless interrogations? Even more startling, the film exposes the lies of Zero Dark 30, a blatant propaganda film that attempted to justify Gitmo torture as essential to the capture and assassination of Osama bin Laden, who was probably already dead long ago anyway. But the film really stops short of examining the big question, like who really planned 9/11 and who was really murdered in Pakistan. So the reason the CIA snatched 775 people and tortured them for years was not to get to the real story of 9/11, but to create the false impression they had actually rounded up the perpetrators while extracting confessions that could be touted in the media to justify the war on terror. The film is certainly worth watching on Amazon, even though it does drag on while skirting around some obvious truths. Maybe if more Americans started putting 2 and 2 together, the scales may fall from their eyes. I know it's difficult for many to confront the reality international terrorism is a tool of intelligence agencies and deployed to justify a fascist military state that inflicts the terror through secret operations. The truth is, the Gitmo torture sessions laid a foundation for future wave of jihadist terror, because that's exactly what's going to happen. When you foment violence, especially upon innocent people, eventually that violence will come back at you in some form. In intelligence, it's called blowback, and the CIA is well aware of the impact and implications.